Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third webinar in the Informed Voices Media Literacy series. We are truly happy to see returning participants and also new faces joining us today. Our topic is timeless manipulation, all tricks in a digital world, and we often assume that manipulation came with technology, but in truth, these strategies are ancient and only the mediums have changed. And today we have a very interesting journey ahead of us. And I'm delighted to co-host this session with Gabriela Pastohi from Hungary. But before we begin, just a couple of reminders for our participants. So to be eligible for a certificate, you have to attend at least 4 out of 6 webinars and also complete the short quiz at the end of the session. And of course, we encourage you to participate actively. You may type your questions in the chat or just unmute yourselves and ask your questions directly. So now it's time to pass the floor to Gabriela to greet you as well.
Hello, thank you so much, Shalala. Welcome, everyone. It's wonderful to see such a diverse group here, and we really appreciate your commitment to media literacy. As Shalala mentioned, today we're looking at how manipulation tactics used centuries ago are still successfully applied today, especially in our digital information spaces. And we are honored to have our guest speaker, Tamás Schauermann, a career and learning coach, a mentor, and teacher. Tamás will guide us through an ancient case study that will show how people can be persuaded into actions that are not in their best interest, and how the same psychological triggers still work with modern technology. So, with further delay, we'd like to pass the floor to Tamás Schauermann. Tamás, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. I would have high expectations after listening to this intro, so I'll try to match my own idea about what you might be expecting from this lecture. So what I was preparing for you is really a story that has been around for several thousand years, actually, and it's a story that is shared by 3 major religions, and I'm going to do a few things in this webinar, or at least that's what I plan. So let me just walk you through what to expect. So I'm going to tell you a very ancient story about how humanity lost its innocence, or at least according to the Bible, which is a book that is taken seriously by the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. And one of the first story in the Bible is actually a story about manipulation. And so I'm going to tell you a few things about the background of the story, and then we will zoom in on the discussion and whatever is happening there, and we'll kind of take it into pieces and see what kind of moves that have been made, and why was it so utterly hard to resist. And then we will see how those techniques can be actually seen in at least one practice in social media, and we will see how we can counteract against those techniques. We'll actually, I would be very much interested in whether you can come up with ideas how they could have resist the manipulation back then, and then see how this will apply today. And also I will show you a few resources to dig into this topic deeper. So that's my plan. So let me just tell you about this story. This ancient story has actually a few backgrounds to know about. The story is found in the book called Genesis, which is the very first book in the Bible, and it is Genesis. there's a setting, so something happens before this event, and the thing that happens is actually creation itself. So there is and I'm asking you to take the story now for face value. Okay, so we are not gonna discuss how to interpret this story and what kind of religious meaning it would have, or effect on people if they take it seriously. I'm just focusing on the story now. But you need to understand the story first in order to understand why it was actually a very nasty case of manipulation, what happened in the third chapter. So there is a garden created alongside with the whole universe, where every possible thing is there for a fulfilled life. So they lack nothing. So there's nothing that they would miss. Um, Also, they are the first couple, so there's no one around really. At least in the story universe. And and God, who has created this entire setting, is actually very close. So he is coming along them and walk with Adam in the evening and discuss the day. And so they have a chat every day. We find out this actually later on in the story that this is a regular habit. And the first couple is being in a really brilliant mental and health shape. So they have never ever experienced shame. They have no problem with their own bodies. They have no problem with each other, with the nature. So it's a really kind of neat, harmonious situation that is kind of created. And and interesting enough, there is one single thing that is a limit, or off limit rather. So there is one thing that God is requests from them, and it's not to eat from a specific tree. There's one tree among many trees that they freely are able to eat, and this one specific tree is not is forbidden, and and it's the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and and then as we kind of get this idea of how beautiful and perfect this situation is, um, the narration goes into the story of a fall of this crash basically that happens, with a hint that there's an animal, the snake, which was shrewd. And in the original language, there's a rhyming, like the word naked and the word shrewd is actually just tiny bit different from each other. So if you listen to the story in the original language, you would instantly pick up that the storyteller is trying to show you the contrast between being naked and do not, not feeling ashamed, and being shrewd or hidden incentives, and so like not to hide anything, and then someone is hiding something, and that's the point where we enter this into this situation. And I'm going to tell you that if you're interested in this condition, in this pre-fall condition, C.S. Lewis has written a brilliant scientific like sci-fi trilogy, and the first one is called Silent Planet, is describing a world in full development without this crash. So if you're interested in a sci-fi describing how it would have looked like without this case of manipulation, I greatly recommend you Silent Planet from C.S. Lewis. So at this point, there is a conversation between the snake and the woman. Um, and I'm going to tell you how the conversation goes, and we'll see what it kind of causes, and then we will go into this conversation sentence by sentence and see what really happens in this conversation, because it's just a huge showcase of different manipulative techniques and aspects. So the snake comes to the woman in this garden and says, opens the discussion with the sentence, "Did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden?" So that's the opening sentence, and by which the woman asks, responds, "Oh, we may eat of the fruit of the tree in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. And then at that point, the serpent responds to the woman with the two-part response. First one is, "Ah, you will not surely die." And the second part is, "For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." And that's a really, really short discussion, which then gets actually the woman to look at the tree. Um, and the narrator tells us that so when the woman saw that tree, it was good for food, and that it was delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, um, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves loincloths. So they lost their shameless state, they lost their innocence, and suddenly they had all sorts of problem with themselves, and suddenly being naked became a problem, and they had to hide it somehow. So that was the indication that something deep was broken, and something very nasty was coming forth. And the story goes, and if you're interested, just read on. It's worth actually. But what I'm trying to do now is actually slow down and look at this conversation just line by line and see what is happening really in this discussion. So the first thing is what is not happening, and that's a really interesting thing because many times we see that manipulation is playing along two tracks. One track would be to play on someone's shame or guilt, to set up a situation where I would where I would suggest that the other person has something to be ashamed of, or did something, I hint at something that he did that was not acceptable. And then either bribery or blackmailing can come into the picture. And these two are extremely powerful manipulation techniques where I try to force people to choose something that they would never choose because they have something to hide that I might reveal. So that's the first track that could be played if it's a manipulation situation. But the snake couldn't play those tracks because the people were, as we read, naked and didn't feel ashamed. So they have never committed anything that they could be framed for. So it was out of question. The other track that the snake could have taken, which is very often seen in manipulation, is questioning someone's self-worth or identity. When I try to suggest that unless the person does something, he is not lovable, or he is not valuable enough, or there is some problem with the person. Oh, you don't do this. Oh, there must be something wrong with you. And that's basically playing on this self-worth denial or question that everyone has, and also the identity uneasiness or unsolved identity that also we observe. And so these two tracks were not available for the snake because in this story, at least, these people had no problem with their lovableness or their identity. They had no problem with their past because they've never done anything wrong. So they could not be tricked into this blackmail or bribery situation. So what was the snake doing really? So the snake was doing a far more clever strategy, and it's really, really nasty. The first thing he did was coming in, and if you remember the first sentence that he was saying, which was here, um, the snake said, "Did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden?" And if you listen to the background story, then you would know that no, God did not say that they couldn't eat any of the trees. In fact, all the trees were available for them except just one. And so what the snake was first saying is basically coming in and checking with the woman about a rumor that goes around. I have no idea who is spreading this rumor, by the way. Was it the giraffe that was telling Snake that did you hear that these humans are not allowed to eat any fruit? Poor guys. How can they, go without hunger for so long? So the snake comes in and pretends as if there's a rumor going around, something outrageous, and he is now coming to the source and checking with these people. So what really happens is the snake appearing as a concerned party, someone who's really, really concerned about what's going on here. Is it really true that you are not allowed to eat any fruit? Wow, that sounds really, really awful. And also, um, he's posing as a curious person doing all he can to find out the truth. So it's really a noble position, isn't it? That you are trying to find the sources and check with them whether it's true or not. And also putting the woman into the expert position. I mean, I came to you because you are the person who holds all the answers, and I humbly ask for your opinion. Is that true? You know, and um, and also the question itself is an outrageous lie. So he's not opening with a slight alteration. It's actually a very brave, very stark lie, and that is also really, really nasty technique because that triggers people to respond. If you're listening to or watching some of the educational videos, how to raise kids and how to get them out of their tantrums, one of the way that people suggest that you can get kids out of their tantrum is to ask them to collect objects in the area or point at objects which are shiny or smooth or rigid or cold because that activates their sensory centers in their brain, and that will kind of shift the control back to the prefrontal cortex, and and so they will come out of the tantrum. And if it doesn't work, the final suggestion is give them a suggestion which is outrageously not true, like, oh, there is this lemon. I guess this is really, really cold. Or there is this hot stove, which might be very cold. And the kid is startled and forgets, what the problem was and says, no, that's hot. That's not cold. That's hot. And so what the snake is doing is basically diverting the Eve's or the women's attention from all these nasty things into into an area where the woman is ready to correct him. Um, so, so he's setting up a situation where he's posing as an interested person who is concerned about the well-being of the other, who is somehow informed from somewhere, but he's not telling us where did he get this strange idea that the humans were not allowed to eat any of the fruits. So that was the first move. So the second move when the woman responds, and the woman responds, I mean, happily, if you remember, that's the woman's response here. Um, God said, "You shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden," and we don't know whether God really did say that they shouldn't touch it because it doesn't come out of the background of the story. So maybe the woman was too keen to explain everything and therefore went a bit further on. But it's a different question. So that now the snake step makes the next move, and the next move is plain denial. So the woman says we are allowed to eat all the fruits except one, because if we do it, then we die. And the snake comes, oh, don't die. Oh, that's not true. That's just not true. You're not going to be dying. I mean, you're not going to die. And so now the snake is posing as an expert, um, and and posing as one having some additional information. That's really clear. I mean, when he comes up with this straight denial, uh, why would he say that? Why is he so sure that they're not going to die? So the third move is he need to back up. why he's playing. He's just saying exactly the opposite of what the other person have known so far, and he is doing four or five things. One is he's offering an alternative explanation to that the women and everyone assumes so far. And so far, it seemed that God acts in the best interest of the human couple. So he surrounded them with everything that was needed for their well-being and has just made one request. And now the in order to sell this blatant lie to the woman, the snake has to come up with an alternative explanation. And the alternative explanation is basically a character assassination. So the snake is going to destroy their idea about the intent of God. So he is setting up a situation as a conflict of interest, which no one would ever talk about before. There is no hint that God would have any kind of other interest than the well-being of this couple. And the snake is now starting to hint at this direction. And ultimately, he's displaying God, the power figure in this story, as a self-centered and manipulative person you need to rescuing from. So basically, the snake comes in and says, "Oh, how naive you are! I mean, you just don't believe this crap, do you? That it, you know, that you would die. Oh, let me tell you." And so by telling them this alternative explanation, he's posing as a savior and liberator figure who gives back the control and creates the chance of self-governance. So these people, although completely autonomous so far and had they could decide whatever they wanted to, now suddenly see themselves as being in chains and limited in their movement and denied something very important and almost fundamental, or it seems it's almost fundamental. And so the snake says, and if you remember what he was saying, actually, he said that you will not surely die. That's the blatant lie. For God knows that when you eat of it, like the tree, your eyes will be open, you will be like God, and knowing good and evil. And he's basically saying that God doesn't want you to be like him, which is partly true, by the way, but it's he suggests that this is something that they should or could get this phase, and then they are denied something very good, knowing good and evil. And so what happens here is God does have plans and thoughts way beyond that man, and that is basically true, except that the snake is now questioning God's intention, his motives. And again, I made a suggestion about C.S. Lewis's trilogy. So if you're interested in the techniques and how it goes, listen. I mean, read or listen to the second book of the trilogy because it's a brilliant unfolding of the story in a sci-fi context. So I hope you can follow me because now I'm going to look at the interpretation of or see why it works. What does it trigger? I can stop here if you have any question or comments or observation. I'm very happy to stop. Or I can carry on, of course.
I think it's better to carry on.
Okay, and then we'll come back in the after. Okay. So the question is, I mean, I have two questions. Obviously, you would have different ones, even more. But I would have two questions. Why does it work? Like, why was it so successful? And also, if if everything is there in these sentences, and we can talk about this later on, whether you see these in these sentences or I'm just hallucinating. But if you agree with me that these moves are behind these sentences in the assumption level, then how to get more information about what kind of tactics are there out there. So that these are going to be my two focal points. So why does it work? Well, the first one, why it works is that it plays on a lost sense of security. So basically, up till now, the humans were completely safe in this garden. They had nothing threatening their happiness. And now suddenly, the snake is is set up this whole situation where threat comes from the direction of where they expect its security from. So basically, their trust has been broken, and now they need to be alert and have to watch out for themselves. So this state of mind that this switch that the snake can achieve. Well, obviously they had to decide to believe him, and they did. So we will talk about how they could have responded and how they could have fought against this manipulation. But I you might see how powerful these moves were. So it's like, at least let's have some empathy towards Eve and Adam to fall for these techniques. So there is a lost sense of security, and also it was really interesting, and this is also part of many manipulation techniques, is that there is the introduction of scarcity. So up till now, there's no mention of food shortage or any kind of danger that they would be hungry or not having enough. And with the snake, um, with this move, the snake introduced something that is missing, something that is kind of out there, like beyond their reach. And so there is this new phenomena of scarcity, that there's not enough. And also, he was activating FOMO, fear of missing out. So up till now, there's no mention of anything that they would need to have in order to be happy. Now they have at least a very strong suggestion that they would need to have this capacity of knowing good and evil in order to live a full life or something. So FOMO is now activated, and if they don't want to miss out on this whole thing, they better do what the snake is suggesting. And also the fourth one is extremely powerful. As they lost their trust in this situation, they up till now they were it was enough for them to start to interpret. I mean, to interpret the best way they possibly can, what God is saying. So their task was to get to the bottom of what God really wants them to do. From now on, they need to guard themselves, and they need to critique it, not just interpret it, but critique it. Like have an independent position and look at, with this question, is it going to help me? Is it not going to help me? Is it going to hurt me? So there's a completely new level of intellectual activity that they have to do. And of course, if God is not worthy of this kind of distrust, then they just introduced into their own life a completely futile and useless set of activities and source of anxiety and fear and everything. So that's why it's so powerful, and that maybe you may be seeing even more reasons why this attack on Adam and Eve was such a devastating one. But if you're interested in more, and maybe from those you can find out whether there are even more layers in this technique that I have seen, then I give you a few hints where to find um, some new ideas. These are not new either, because there is this philosophist called Schopenhauer, who is a European philosophist, who once wrote a thesis, which is runs in different under different titles. The one is Art of Controversy, or another title is The Art of Being Right. And he's presenting 38 ways to win an argument. And the subtitle is Even if you're not right. So if you have so how to win an argument even if you're wrong. Basically, that's the entire thesis. So he's basically lists 38 different dirty tactics of how to make it impossible for the other person to prove his point. So it's a really, really funny, by the way, really funny thesis. Some people think that he is basically educating the people to win a nasty fight. He's saying that he just wants us to be prepared and well guarded. Well, it's up to you. You decide after you read the piece. And there is actually two videos that I'm going to send you the link. One is summarizing the content of this book. The other one is actually oh, probably no, sorry. One is reading the entire thesis. The other one is picking up the 10 most common tricks, and we'll present it for you. And also, you will have, as I could see in the series of this lecture series, there's going to be a lecture on cognitive biases, which are tricking us into thinking about something, like tricking us into decisions that are not well grounded. And also, there are going to be, at least if I remember right, there's someone who's going to talk about logical fallacies. So I didn't go into these, but these two realms, these two categories are holding lots of ideas about how manipulation can be tricky and hard to combat. So, what are the solutions? Because now we have a pretty well-rounded understanding of how serious the threat is. So the question is how to defend ourselves against these threats. And I'm going to, excuse me. Okay. So I'm going to give you oh yeah, before I go into the solution, I give you a modern equivalent of this whole thing, and just one single example, and because there are so many more, and you can find those, and but you will be only guarded against them if you understand what's going on. But there is um, a lot of photos actually in the internet where you will see how phone farms are set up in different parts of the world. And phone farms, I'm going to show you pictures how this really looks. Is phones, not really up-to-date phones, so they might be used phones, older versions, are put it into a grid where all the phones are connected. Every single phone is signed in to Facebook and has a profile, a fake profile running on the phone. And then there is a computer in the middle, and you can see how this desktop computer is sitting in the middle, and all those phones are connecting to it. And this desktop computer is basically running a centralized and highly automated processes where the operator, this little guy here, for example, uh, can simultaneously send those phones onto certain posts and profiles and like them and follow them and basically act as if these were natural people responding to content. And therefore, they will completely send the algorithms to different ways, lift up topics that are important for them, for their purposes, for their influence, and at the same time, the system is set up in a way that these phones act as if they were not in the same place, as if they were not connected. So they will have masked identities and network locations. So it's basically a very sophisticated army of droids or algorithms that are commanded by a single person in a chair in front of a computer. And so by this, you can transform and change appearance and response. And if you remember, I told you that the snake comes back and says that there is a rumor going around that you are not allowed to eat any of the tree, of any of the trees. Well, this is the place where the rumor comes from, where lots of phones are saying something that is not true. But since there are so many people are saying it, you start to believe that this is something you need to take seriously and think about it, whether this is a real option. And of course, let me recommend you the third book in the trilogy, which is precisely about how a society is manipulating the British public. And the book was written in 45, and Orwell was reviewing it 5 years before he published his own dystopia. And most of the scholars think that this book has influenced Orwell in a big time, how he creates some of his characters. So if you're interested, this is a brilliant novel in the closing of the trilogy. So this is just basically a modern day parallel of what we were talking so far, and then let's see what action can we do, can we take. So the first one is, I think it's worth starting to think about how Eve and Adam could have fought the snake, because they were not completely helpless. They were not absolutely served up as dinner to the snake. Actually, they could have done quite a number of things. The first one is which people who need to negotiate evil agents like hostage situations are recommending, which is a kind of a counterintuitive thing, is an attitude, ironically, to us assume a positive intent. So the first thing that Eve could have done is assume that the snake has a positive intent, because that would make her aware of all the inconsistencies in the snake story. Because there are some inconsistencies in the snake story. So, for example, when the snake first comes and says, "Is that true that you are not allowed to eat any of the trees?" Then Eve could have stopped and says, "So where did you get this information from? I mean, we are the only human in this garden. I mean, who told you? Who told you this false information?" So, like, by assuming that the snake is really interested, would have freed up Eve to actually see some of the incongruencies of the snake story. So that's a really interesting suggestion of everyone who is dealing with people who are trying to manipulate you. The second one is ask the same question about the snake that he proposes about God. So the snake was saying that God has hidden motives. So why not ask the same thing about the snake? What was the snake purpose? What was his intention? Why would he pose, why would he not go to God? Or why would he not, it's is he up to something? If we ask exactly the same question as what the snake was trying to say about God before we consider the content of his message, that would have been a really, really interesting discussion starting. The second one is ask about the reliability. So how reliable is he, like the snake, knowing all the backstory, when the fact he seems to be misinformed about the very surface of the story, like whether we are allowed to eat or not, is completely wrong. So he seems to be completely wrong in something obvious. Why would I want to take seriously his hidden information, his insight, his intel, his whispered, secret information? Like, if he's so wrong in a surface truth, why would be he so true in a deep question of someone's motives and characters? Then also, we could have asked, or Eve could have asked, about a track record. So, what have we so far experienced about God? Does that sound likely? I mean, the way the snake is interpreting God's intention, have we seen any kind of sign of God being protective or competitive or jealous? And the same thing is true with the snake. I mean, what have we experienced about the snake so far? And there's a hint in the narrator that he was really shrewd. So there might have been situations in the past where it was obvious that the snake had some ideas on his own. So why not consider the track record with both relationships? And finally, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So if someone comes up with a statement like the snake came up, um, then we should be very careful to change our views without investigating the matter. I mean, we could have, or Eve could have, go back to God and says, "Well, I met this creature, this snake guy, who is spreading news which is really fishy. I mean, I just came back to you. Is that true that you don't want us to be like you? Is that true that you don't want us to know good and evil? Or how should we understand this whole thing?" So, like short-circuiting these rounds can actually destroy some of the most cunning manipulation. So why not discuss it with someone who we share the consequences with? That's another question. So why did not Eve ask for time and discuss the whole thing with Adam? Why was she immediately grabbing the apple and then giving to Adam and suggested that he would follow? That's also something very could have been done completely differently. And if you have ever been a victim of a vacuum cleaner salesman, then you know that there is a deadline, and you're not allowed to talk to family members, and very often you have to make your decision on the spot. And so, because otherwise people might call some of the parameters to your attention, and you realize that this is not a very good deal after all. So why not going back to the source or the person accused and see what and also how he responds? So that could have been done in this situation. So what can we do? What can we do in our own situation? So I give you two things, and then I just close my session and allow you to discuss everything. And we still have 18 minutes, so we should be plenty of time. We should have plenty of time to discuss. One is I give you a really interesting video that I just stumbled upon recently. There are channels where people are showing or analyzing police investigation. So when there is someone caught relating to a crime, and they pull this person into the investigative room, and they start this discussion, and they start to play this game, good cop, bad cop, and all sorts of interesting techniques, how they try to convince the accused person to admit the crime. There's a video here, and I'm going to send you the entire thing so you will have the link, where there's a robbery, and they found a heroin addict in the neighborhood with the gun in his hand. So obviously they immediately took him to the police station without really knowing whether he was the guy who'd robbed the shop or not. And they were trying out all sorts of techniques on this guy. And this guy, clearly in withdrawal, could see through all the manipulation technique, and he was masterfully destroying all this manipulation that the police came up with. And since he was innocent, by the way, he was let to go free. And just to make it even more interesting, the story, after he did this, he somehow got hold of the video recording of his discussion with the police, and he uploaded it to YouTube. And so many people started to comment and analyze the whole thing that his whole life turned around. So he came off the drugs, and he started to give advices to people, and he started to use his intellect, and he became an influencer who is kind of really using his understanding and knowledge. So it's quite a surprising story. But this and under this link, you will be hearing a running commentary of what happens and what kind of manipulation technique the police is trying to use, and you will see how this guy is responding and brilliantly disarming the police of this thing. The other thing that I really want to show you is a card game that you can play with kids, which will educate them how to pick up fake news, and how to analyze fake news, and how to give a score to a fake news site or an article, and decide how likely this is true or not true. And so this card game is actually free to download from this link. You can be using it through Miro or like in a digital form, or you can print it out and then play it with as a game. Basically, the process goes like you present an article to a group of kids, and then you have this deck which has questions. Every single card has a question, and according to how you would answer this question, yes or no, you put down you put down the card to the right or to the left. So basically, you sort the pile, and in the end, you compare the height of the two piles. Is it a fake news? Is it not a fake news? And you will see how much evidence there seem to be that points towards that this should not be taken seriously, or
Ben bir tane yarım verim.
so that's that you can find it here, and you can try it out with students or adults or even yourself if you try to train yourself pick up manipulative articles or content in the internet or in the social media. So that was all I tried to kind of squeeze into this very short time, and I'm very, very happy to hear your opinions or ask questions. If I can answer, I will be very happy to answer. If anyone else can answer, then that's also great. I'm not saying that I'm an expert on manipulation per se, but this is certainly a topic that I've been thinking about a lot over the years. So I give back the control
Thank you so
to you.
much, Tamás. That was incredibly insightful to trace back the history of manipulation. And now we'll move to our Q&A session, starting with our own questions. And after that, we'll also take questions from the audience. So the first question is, in your view, what makes manipulative techniques so timeless? Why do the same techniques continue to work across centuries?
Hmm. Like, are you asking me now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a really, really good question, and I think the same question is applies to the Greek dramas and tragedies. Why are we still playing Greek tragedies that are like 3,000 or like 2,500 years old? Why are we reading ancient stories? I think because humans do not change in their fallenness and in their needs, and there have always been people who are trying to use others for their own means, and so they have experimented techniques, and they not many new techniques can we find or invent. I think it's very close to our human capacity. That would be my first guess.
Human
I'm
nature,
not sure.
let's say,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
So,
the nature of reality, and yeah.
Gabby?
Oh, yes. I mean, it was really interesting, and I keep thinking about your ideas, Tamás. And just one comment here, in your notes, you had this: as trust is lost, the need for interpretation is replaced with the necessity of critique. And we keep teaching our students and our participants about critical thinking. Does it mean that critical thinking began with Adam and Eve?
Hmm. Well, actually, critical thinking doesn't need to be distressful. So I think critical thinking is basically the process of interpretation that we are doing. I would add critique as on top of this. So, for example, if you were trying to explain to me something about English teaching, like your trade, your professional thing, since I trust you, I would be using critical thinking to get the bottom of what you are trying to say to me. But if there's any hint that you don't have a degree and you're a imposter, and I get this idea somewhere that you're basically posing to be an English teacher and not really someone, then I need to turn on my critical what is it, attitude, and
Uh-huh.
and start to filter what can be trusted, and start to differentiate between things that I believe you and things that I don't think you know what you're talking about. And this new quality of this of this attitude is basically introduced. So critical thinking could be just a tool for interpretation, but when you need to critique the other person, you need to really decide how trustworthy the other person is or what exactly should you believe, then that's a new quality entering into the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and in the chat, I found another question by Dan.
Yes.
Uh, is asking, can manipulation be discarded only with critical thinking and sound arguments? So once
Can
again,
say
can
it again?
can manipulation be discarded only with critical thinking and sound arguments?
Well, sometimes it's very hard to decide whether we are trusting or being naive. So sometimes we find out later that we trusted something that was not true. So it's not always possible to bulletproof, to become bulletproof against
Yeah.
manipulation because sometimes you just find out later on that the person was not trustworthy. And so, but I think like if yeah, something I would probably add to this tool is knowing the person. This is not ex equal to understand everything about the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's like knowing his intention or heart or getting this kind of feel of the essence of the other person, how, and that is not necessarily a process that you can just, you can't give scores to people, for example, or you can't measure these kind of things. You need to kind of feel that this person is safe or unsafe. And we have, by the way, lots of those faculties built into our psyche, which are exploited by some of the manipulation techniques. And if you will listen to the cognitive biases lecture by someone in the list, uh, probably this person is going to tell you how our natural capacities are exploited along the way. So it's yeah, but these are tools that you can deploy for sure, and then reduce the risk significantly, and then you will find out in the end that was it enough or not.
Yes, definitely. And also in the second part of your presentation, you explained different ways you can turn manipulation back and the ways you can defend yourself
Yep.
from it, apart from critical thinking or argumentation.
Hmm.
Yes, Shalala, do you have
Yeah.
any questions?
Yes, I have a question. How can individuals recognize a moment when persuasion becomes manipulation? I mean, are there any warning signs we should consciously look for?
Yeah, I think there is. So if resistance appears in you, your psyche is, or your neurology is picking up a situation far quicker
Mm.
and much earlier than you would think. There's this experiment which I love so much because it explains so much. Is someone is made to sit down in at a table, and there's two piles of cards in front of them. It's a very simple game. He needs to pull a card. If it's above a certain value, he wins a point. If it's below a certain value, the bank wins a point or something. And the only freedom he has is to choose which pile he draws from. Okay. And so after something like 20 some draw, he can tell you that one of the pile is really dangerous. There are lots of, long series of winning and long series of losing. And the other pile is kind of a safe pile. So there is like four winning and two losing, four winning, two losing. So it's like a constant winning streak. And so after 20 some draw, the player understands that this is the reality. Now, after just 16 draw, you can observe that he's tending towards the safer pile. So he doesn't know yet. He doesn't cannot explain why, but you can also already see the decision he's making. Far more frequently, he pulls card from the safe pile. But then in this experiment, they put like stress sensors on the person, and and heartbeat and sweat, sensors and everything. And they could tell they could tell that after 9, 10 draw, the nervous system reacted with stress when he was reaching towards the risky pile and was calmed down when he was reaching towards the safe pile. So there's like a sequence of like a level of realizing what reality is. And first, our neurology is sending us signals. So, for example, if someone is trying to persuade us against our own interest, because that's the point, that's the manipulation. That's basically the essence of manipulation. That someone wants us to do something that is not entirely in our own interest. Our neurology is going to pick up this trait pretty quickly. And if we start to listen to our guts and body, how our body is reacting, we can actually have this sensation very quickly. There's something fishy going on. We have to be alert and we have to listen carefully and we have to turn on our critical faculties and then, look for inconsistencies or look for signs of malice, what is it? Malevolent intent. Okay.
Sure.
Gabby?
Yeah, and do you think that technology has simply amplified this manipulation, or manipulation itself changed its nature fundamentally?
I don't think that the nature, like the manipulation, has changed. What I think changed is the amount of information that reaches us. So we don't have time to evaluate. We don't have time to listen to our guts. We don't have time to get to know the person properly. So we are served up in a sense. We have to make so many decisions on limited data with no real access to people's uh, real intention. We always hear just interpretation of what, two political parties, two leaders. One is going to tell you that the real intention of the other is such and such. The other one is going to tell you that this guy's real intention is such and such. And you are in the middle and trying to figure out who to trust. And there's going to be, and even now with AI, there are going to be generated lies in so convincing format that you feel lost. So I think that the demand on our, I don't know what would be the great
Hmm.
bandwidth. Our bandwidth is completely full, so we don't have time to slow down, process, and think.
And actually, all those verification techniques that we share with the audience, they are also time consuming. And in
Absolutely,
modern days, we don't have this luxury of
absolutely.
taking everything that we get. And I have one more question. Is manipulation necessarily a negative thing? Because I think we encounter manipulation in all spheres of our life, like in
Mm.
our workplaces, personal relationships, parent-child connections, and in all types of interactions. So, is it a negative thing, or can it have some positive
Well,
outcome?
if we define manipulation as convincing someone against his own best interest, then I think it should be avoided in, at all cost. If you're talking about posing certain things in a way that would reduce, um, like policies, for example, opt-in, opt-out policies, that the default choice should be something that we are convinced that the other person's interest would demand this. I would not call it manipulation, especially if we are clear what we are suggesting or why we are saying this. If we are hiding our intentions and they are partly not at the interest of the other person, then I would say this is manipulation and it should be avoided. But persuasion in itself is not wrong. So like I was trying to convince you for an hour about something, you know. Did you feel manipulated? I hope not, because you could see why I'm saying certain things, how I backed this up. And of course, we didn't have enough time to discuss it and critique it now. But I didn't want to get you into something that you feel you probably or hopefully that you feel that this is not good for you. So and then I was trying to persuade you very strongly. So
Yeah.
You definitely persuaded me about a timelessness of manipulation, Tamás.
yeah. Great.
Do you have any questions, Gabby?
No, thank you.
Yes, so we have come to an end of one more interesting session. So, Gabby, your last words.
Yeah. So, Tamás, thank you so much for being our guest tonight. And
You're
we
welcome.
absolutely would like to welcome you back on the further sessions of our series. And please, everyone, complete the quiz at the end of the session. And you can receive the certificate if you have at least four answers, four sets of answers out of the 6 webinars. And thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yes, I would also like to thank you, Tamás, for joining us, for taking your time and sharing your valuable expertise with all of us. And also, I would like to thank dear Gabi and the audience for being here today. And just we look forward to seeing you next time, all of you. And until then, just stay safe, stay informed, and stay media literate. And see you next time. Bye.
See ya.